Yo, what's up, everybody? So I've been talking a whole lot before I hit record, so I feel like we can almost just like jump right in. I want to talk about clairvoyance, and then for folks that are new, we typically like pick topics and then kind of just see how much we can like pull apart in the time that we have together. And of course, we're doing energy work, so I'm gonna like take us through a process where I can take or I can share this information and then we can like do something with it. We can see how it ripens, right? And for myself, I think it's, this thing for me, energy work isn't about like faith, isn't about, like really cool. It is, you can have really cool teachers, but it's about ripenings, right? It's around like, what am I doing with that information? Like, what benefit does it produce, right? Like, how does it help me heal my relationship to myself, to my family, to my community, right? Like that's the most important. And so when talking about clairvoyance, what I think is like most important actually isn't to perceive things accurately in and of itself, as much as it is to like build a relationship with myself and my world and honor my lived experiences. And I know that that sounds weird. Um, it's cool because in this topic, right, I was talking about generosity, and I was like, plot twist, generosity isn't about me giving things that like poor people, right? I'm like, boo-hoo, like these people need things from me. I'm like, no, no, no. Like generosity is about me becoming like the best version of myself. And like, what's the most generous thing I could do is like be my authentic whole self. And then that's where I give from, right? So I'm like, y'all want to learn clairvoyance? Cool. Accurately perceive who you are and what you're up to. And that'll create a significant like stability to look at others from. So I hope that makes sense. Um, and then the question then becomes like, so then what keeps us from having that? And I think easily like the answer we can give is like, it's our pain, it's our hurt. It's the parts of us that were like too, like the emotions, the experiences that were too big for little us, like baby us's to hold. And that's what happens. I'm sorry, that's what, like when I'm perceiving something, that's what's coming up, right? And I've given these examples before, right? But that's when like, if I have a really, let's say, fraught relationship with money, I look at somebody driving a car that's like really fancy and I'm like, look at this jerk. I'm like, how selfish is this person, right? And it's just my hurt projected onto these things. But that person could be a really generous person, a really kind person. That person, I'm saying, like, could be living the last of their days. I'm like, in my mind, they're like really old. So I'm like, dude, like, let him live his last 2 years with some joy in a convertible, right? Why not, right? Um, these value judgments, these beliefs, these like projections, they can be coming from our our lived experiences, right? But they can also be programmed, meaning that like, um, let's say if I keep that example with money, it's like I wasn't the first person to come up with that judgment around money. Like maybe it was like some family, maybe it was like, again, like kind of like a more broader societal message. But clairvoyance requires us to be able to see everything informing my perspective. And then trying to get to the perspective again that is aware of its filters. Not a perception that has no filters, but a perception that's aware that I filter everything I see. I hope that makes sense. So, I think from like the get, like it's not about perfection. It's also like not about being right. If there's ever like an energy worker that's like 100%, this is the thing, they're probably not a good energy worker. They're probably like really new, or really old, because sometimes that happens, or they've been doing it a while. I guess the whole learning curve has it, but nah, like it's not possible. Anytime, as an energy worker who has done this for like whatever amount of time, if I perceive somebody's possible future, the second I name it, I actually change their distance from it. Because if I'm like, yo, this thing's gonna happen, they're either like, nah, or they're like, absolutely, right? And they already move, right? And even if they're like, oh, that's really cool, I've always wanted that, they're like, or they're like, right? Like it changes the second I say it. And I've given people reads where I'm like, yo, okay, this is the most probable thing that's gonna happen. And they literally sneeze. And then like their whole time like shifts, right? They're like, they sneeze, somebody didn't say bless you, and then they're like, you know what? It's time to heal my heart. And then the whole thing changes. Like literally, just like they see an infomercial, they see something on TV, like the stars move, right? Like it's not possible. So as we're working with clairvoyance, we just want to get information that supports us. You know, and I'm going to put a couple more things out there. Being an expression of who we are. Thank you, Amore. Definitely, everything's about context. So with clairvoyance, again, one more time, like we want to receive the information that helps us be greater expressions of who we are. So in a session, I want clairvoyance so I can like better help this person. In a friendship, I probably don't need clairvoyance to be like, oh my God, there was 3 lifetimes ago where like they had been hurt. And now that karma is like showing up with their mom. Like if I'm having a conversation and we're like hanging out, like I probably need to use, well, one, I probably don't even need my clairvoyance. I probably just need to be attentive and listen, right? But if I'm going to use my clairvoyance, it's probably to like do fun shit together, right? Like sometimes people are like, in like inappropriate with our like reads, right? Like we're not respecting people's boundaries. So definitely like, you know, always check in before you give somebody a read. Always see if they even want your read. Always qualify with like, you know, I don't know if this is true. This is what I'm seeing, right? So my clairvoyance at work, right? It might be like, I don't know, seeing if projects are a good idea, maybe perceiving like, you know, depending on like the work that we got, I guess, right? You know, like these gifts, like they're meant to be very specific in their use, right? Like if I have a fancy, I don't know, I'll try to come up with examples, yeah. You know, but like, you know, tools are very specific. Like you don't use hammers to put screws into something. You don't use a screwdriver to put nails into something, right? Like you, if we're painting a house, we don't want to use a brush. We want to use like those big ass rollers to paint the house, right? If I'm trying to make a painting, I can't use a roller and just go over that painting, right? Like our clairvoyance is it's a refinement so that we can be better expressions of who we are. And that expression of who we are, right? If let's say I really value being kind, I'm going to use my clairvoyance to grow in how kind I can be. Probably the most useful way to do that is to ask questions about what keeps me from being the kindest person I can at work. It doesn't, clairvoyance at work would not be tracking my boss's field, figuring out if he has more mom shit or dad shit. That's inappropriate. That's not being a good psychic. Being a good psychic is I'm at work, I use my clairvoyance to be like, why do I hate my boss so deeply, right? Why do I want to throw a chair at him every time he talks, right? That's when I want clairvoyance, right? That's when I want to be like, right? Like, that's, I use sound effects, right? I'm like, oh wow, it's because I actually am super mad at my dad. I'm like, that makes sense. I'm like, oh, that's right. It's because like I desperately wanted his love, but he was like never a safe person to provide that consistently. And then I'm like, and now I project that onto my boss who's really upset and angry and distant, but I really want him to love me. Right. And I'm like, right. I'm like, fuck. Flashbacks. Right. Those insights when they hit clear. Definitely. Right. That's clairvoyance. Right. Everything else, it's, you know, shitty boundaries and perceptive abilities, you know? Like, I'm sorry. If y'all need to dib, y'all could dib. I'm so sorry. But that, I would say, if we're not using clairvoyance for that deep work, it's just gonna like make our lives messier. Because now I like have more information about other people, and our hurt will weaponize that information, right? The next time I'm mad at my boss, I'm gonna throw at like, oh yeah, well, that lifetime where you were Egyptian, you were an asshole there too, right? Like, or whatever, right? I'm just making things up. But um in my practice, right, I can be using my clairvoyance to be curious of like, where are my blocks? Where are my gaps? Right? When I'm like out in nature, I can like ask these questions of like, yo, I deeply want to belong. I deeply want to connect with nature, and I feel so distant. What is in that distance? Right? And I can use this clear perception to begin to see. And it's in how I ask the questions. So anyways, all right, I'm putting a lot of things out there. So that's more than enough for us to work on. So um, honing it into what we're gonna do. We're just gonna focus on our crown and our third eye space. And our auric bubble, right, has like little things like floating around. I like to imagine that there's like 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 little thoughts floating around, emotions, like one way you can structure that is like imagining that moments in time are like little pictures, and these little snapshots hold information, right? So there's a little picture of me at 7, falling. And then ever since that, I'm like scared of heights. And then there's like a little picture of me getting a high five from like a friend. And I'm like, I'm a good person, right? There's all these like little like bits of information. And you can give them color. You can give them like, again, like a picture. So sometimes clairvoyant will like, you can like, if somebody will talk about something, sometimes I can actually see that person's face in their field, but it's only because like that person has such a clear image of them. Like I'm not perceiving things that are imperceivable. I've used this example before, but sometimes people are like, oh my God, can you read thoughts? And I'm like, yeah, but like most people are like it doesn't help. You know what I'm saying? Like most people's thoughts are so clouded that I'm like, bro's thinking about Cheez-Its, his weekend, like what he wants to do, grief, sadness, hiding like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, they can't even read their own thoughts. Why would I try to read theirs? Like, but when somebody has like a lot of practice, has a lot of cultivation, their crown and third eye are like incredibly stable. And that's what we're gonna work on today, is actually just creating stability in like the movements of our mind, so that our perceptions have somewhere to land. And instead of like, I'm like seeing this thing and I'm bouncing off, right? And I'm like already anxious about emails that I need to send, and like why I haven't eaten, and then like what I'm gonna do, and cleaning my house, and then I get a clean perception, right? They just all bounce off of each other. It me. So what we can do in this crown and third eye space is a couple of things, right? Is, start to almost imagine like other people's information gets a second seat to your authentic information. And the reason for that is that like everyone's constantly programming us. Like this is just like kind of what it means to be human, right? Is like I read a book, right? Like a martial artist used to tell me that he had read a book where it was a salesman, like a car salesman, that was like, everyone's trying to sell you something. And I think it's true, right? Like everyone's selling us something. If we're talking about commercials, they're not just like, oh, look at this like really cool idea, right? Like it's, look at this really cool idea, and like this product will help you. But even if we think of like spiritual traditions, they're trying to sell us their path, right? Like even like different churches, different meditation groups, I'm sure different teachers are like, yeah, I do that better than them, right? Or like, that's really cool, but watch how I do it over here. I think that's like kind of intrinsic, right? Even our friendships sometimes are really built on like talking shit about how other people aren't as good friends. Right? Like it's a part of being human. So, anyways, in our crown, that stuff can get stuck, meaning that other people's attempts to like pull our attention can limit our ability to collect and like regather our like perceptive energies and our perceptive capacities. Um, what it looks like when somebody has a stable crown, and this is like what we're going to use, right? Is like you can imagine that it has one color. When I think of somebody who has like a really clear perceptive like ability, their third eye, again, this is just like a general template, you can just imagine is like it's like clean, right? It's not clouded. The filters that are there are even like cared for, right? The lived experiences that filter their life, they honor and celebrate, right? So like the America that I experience, I am grateful for those like lived experiences. So like my location as, again, like cisgender, straight, particular income bracket, indigenous, my age group, whatever, right? Like I can honor that all of those lived experiences and like all of those locations, I'm like really proud of and I'm really grateful for and I like love. When we do that, there's a clarity. When we invalidate, there's like enough invalidation, we can't get out of our own way. Like if we get invalidated so much, like I literally can't make a choice internally. Like I need somebody externally to make a choice for me. Like it's too overwhelming, right? A little less invalidation, right? It's like I can make choices, but I'm always like, oh no, did I do the right thing? Right? I'm always like waiting for the shoe to drop. Like straight up, sometimes I'll get mail, and if it's like addressed to me, I'm like, oh no. I'm like, is that a ticket? I'm like, what bill did I forget to pay? Right? Um, like that's because just don't open it, right? Like a high level of validation, the stress, a high level of validation, right? It's like, even when I make mistakes, I can own that I made that mistake, right? I can honor like the thought process from which I made that, right? I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, I did do that. Oh, this is what was true for me in that moment. Invalidation, literally like, I don't know where to hide. I'm like, I just want to like put a rock over myself. And here, like in this crown space, I'm just gonna say like the clarity comes from validation. I know that might sound weird though, but continuing. um, and then finally with those programs, right? It's like, we want to be able to receive information, but we want it to be like in like a suggestion box, right? So like I have my own access to truth. Other traditions have their own versions of that truth, and I want to be able to honor those perspectives, but I don't want them to like supersede my own lived experiences or my perspective. Meaning, if I was like very specific, like I love Buddhism, but I don't want to be like some bald Indian cat, you know what I'm saying? Like wearing robes. Like it would be really boring for me, like, and I don't want to be a monk. Like I, I'm like an expression of like what I think is badass about Buddhism. And then like it's kind of hood because I kind of grew up in the hood, and it's Chicano because like I'm Chicano and it's indigenous, and like I grew up doing ceremonies. So like those are my relationships to these truths and my contributions to them. A clouded or invalidation of my lived experiences would demand that I do Buddhism how other people have done it, or that I perceive people as I've been told to perceive them. Maybe coming back to my bookshelf, it's like, I like my bookshelf, but if somebody's like, oh, that's so old, then I see it as old. And then anytime I walk back that bookshelf, I I remember their perception. I hear their comment, right? And like I know we've had that where like somebody says something sideways, and then you just can't forget that sideways thing that they said. And you're like, you stop wearing that outfit because you're like, oh man, I'm not gonna wear that thing, right? Or like they say something about like some decoration, right? And then you like can't remove that. You really like, we can't stop hearing it, we can't stop thinking it, right? Literally this space, right? So then what we're doing is we're just taking these things out. Yo, back to the mother shit. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like in-laws are gonna say stuff like that, right? Like, um, yeah, anyways, y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm talking a lot of shit. So, um, again, with this clear perception, we're just constantly removing other people. And this stuff goes way back, obviously. Like, it's gonna be like things in current time, but it's also going to be things that even, yeah, can like be happening in other lives, can be happening in our lineages. So it gets really big. I'm being like, I'm wanting us to really get it in this like kind of small moment, but these principles apply across lifetimes, and they apply like on even like on a soul level. It's the same thing. It's like I'm owning my perspective, I'm validating who I am on this vaster level, and people are always going to have opinions, you know? So anyways, I hope it makes sense. I took a little notes about what things I wanted to say, so I'm just checking out. Maybe just the last thing, I don't know, I already put a grip of things out there. To really open to like a new way of perceiving things, we have to dissolve our old perceptions. So meaning like this new disagreement with a friend, I have to first honor my other disagreements with other friends, but I really have to like dissolve them and let myself have a new perspective on what's happening. So anytime we keep saying the same story, anytime that I'm like, oh, this person just wants my attention, or oh, this person doesn't care about me, or oh, they're just taking advantage of me, they just want me to like be their servant, right? Like anytime I've said a story more than like a couple times, like this is unfair, right? Whatever, um, probably is that I'm not letting myself have a new perception. There's just so many perceptions that they're just like, we got it. They're like, person's moving, breathing, talking, got it. They're a jerk. And then I'm like, wait, no, I like them. They're like, okay, they're not a jerk yet. They're like, we'll circle back. Right. And then inevitably they do something human. And I'm like, got it. Now they're a jerk. And we really want to be able to dissolve, like honor those perspectives, right? And dissolve what I know. And if that sounds weird, right? Like for me to go beyond what's known, for me to go beyond what I even like have capacity to work for, right? I have to honor everything that brought me to this moment and then be open to what's new. And energetically for me, that's like often honoring, kind of like dissolving those energies, and then just letting this new thing actually invite me into this next step. So, all right. I talked a whole lot more than I thought. So we got 20 minutes. We'll do it. Yeah, and I'll check the comments after. So we're gonna just tune in. So we're gonna imagine like we all step into a really beautiful energetic container. And it's just like an energetic bubble. And the intention in this bubble is that we all get to be our whole authentic selves. We get to like play and like explore this whole field of energy work, which can be fun as fuck. It's not serious, can be serious, can also just be super chill. We're going to invite our own inner guidance to take the lead. We're going to invite our guides to take the lead. And then I put a lot of different convoluted information to try to get us to explore clarity. And just let your guides start to like just start to work that information. And imagining it, they're like kind of like digesting it, processing it. And our inner wisdom and our guides, they get to collaborate and just start to see, okay, this is going to be helpful. This isn't helpful in this moment. Can make that up. Right? Like just let your inner wisdom start to like really have full permission. There you go. Perfect. And all those things that I said, just imagine that they have started to like kind of kick things up already. We're going to imagine that we put energetic magnets in front of us and behind us. And we're just going to start to clear any energies that are ready. Just anything off the top, just releasing it. We're going to clear our connection to the earth and we're going to bring up brand new earth energies. And imagine that these brand new earth energies are going to support you in doing just that, right? In unlocking parts of your clairvoyance, aspects of your gifts, and whatever is like healthy, sweet, important in this moment. We don't need to have those like spiritual awakenings that are like, sound really good in movies, but are just like super over the top. They're like, my spiritual awakening, I was struck by lightning 16 times. And you're just like, bro, you're just like, why? You're like, you could have chilled. Right? It can be easy, it can be sweet. There you go. Good. And when I'm opening to something new, I like to kind of just introduce myself. So if you imagine like if all of your gifts in clairvoyance was like in front of you, just kind of let it know who you are, what you're up to. I like to imagine I share what my week looks like, and I'm like, well, I sleep until 12. I eat a lot of chips. These are some of my goals, my dreams. And so then when you think of clairvoyance, like, why do you want that? Like, what's your motivation for having these gifts open? And I think like motivation, like, having my clairvoyance online can help me help more people. I think that's like a really great goal. I think having clairvoyance can help us live from our purpose, create, have more fun, can help us heal, can help us be happy. And to see what's calling you to this. And again, we're gonna start at our crown and just imagine again, like we're imagining this thing, clairvoyance. And just let all of the different perspectives, ideas, cool things you've heard from other people, let that all start to just sit out in front of you. and bring earth energies. And we're just going to start to clear everyone else's thoughts, opinions. And some of that stuff can be really beautiful. And it can be really honest and it can really work for them. But we're going to clear it to make space for what's your truth, what's your authentic exploration of clairvoyance. Good. And then one more time, let your guides, let your inner wisdom start to evolve that. And as that's evolving and being blessed up, we're going to bring it closer. And as that energy comes closer to you, let it just kind of light up what's in the way in your aura. And so this time, letting it light up again, maybe what's in our crown, what's in our third eye. And we'll refresh our connection to the earth and start to clear these energies from our field. I had shared about little pictures, and just imagine like if there's any little pictures, any moments in time that are stuck, unprocessed, unintegrated, and just give yourself full permission to start to send those pictures out of your aura, where we can wash over them with earth. Washing over them with healing, nourishing water. We'll bring the element of fire and just imagine that that element of fire is clearing these pictures. It's also creating the space to begin to transmute any energies in our aura that are ready to be transmuted. We'll bring the element of wind. And we'll bring golden cosmic energies and just imagine that those golden cosmic energies transmute whatever's stuck, whatever's blocked. Create the permission to like assimilate those experiences, to complete experiences. Here we go. And that clairvoyance that we were opening to and our gifts that we were opening to, just see how much of that is ready to fill some of those spaces. And then we're going to ask the question of, is there any experiences in this lifetime that have been invalidated, that are ready to be validated? And if you're a human who has interacted with other humans, the answer is probably a whole lot, right? And just let your inner wisdom, again, your guides, show you little moments in time. Again, they could be pictures, they could be little bubbles. Let them just show you little moments in time where you needed to be seen, where you needed validation. maybe moments in time that needed to be celebrated. And we're going to start with this lifetime, just all those moments. And one more time, we're going to wash over those in our whole aura with earth. Wash over those moments with healing, nourishing water. We'll bring the element of fire to help these start to transmute. The element of wind. And then just imagine that there's like a whole ocean of love and of kindness and validation in each of these moments in time. And they get fully celebrated. And in the background, we're just gonna let again our intuition, our connection to our guides. If there's things that are happening in other lifetimes, even things kind of like more subtle levels, like on a soul level, those moments in time also be washed over by earth energies. Healing, nourishing water. The element of fire. The element of wind. And then one more time, just imagining that whole ocean of love, kindness, of validation. And give those moments full permission to heal. And then as those moments are kind of like healing and completing, and just see how much more of those gifts of that clairvoyance that we were wanting to open. See how much more wants to or is ready to come into our field. One more time, we'll clear with magnets. We'll refresh our connection to the earth again. We'll have our guides recall our authentic energies, along with recalling any soul fragments, any identity fragments, beaming those in from the bottom of our feet to the top of our heads. And then we talked about a color at our crown, and just imagine like you tune in from red to purple. See if your crown in this moment had a color. You have multiple colors. Just imagine like you can assign your crown a color and just let that color flow to all of the places where your authentic energies are. And then just get a sense for where there's inauthentic energies. And again, those could be energies of other people's perspectives, their programs. And I'm just going to give your crown permission to start to vibrate those other colors out. And as we vibrate them out, and you can bring earth energies and they can honor those other energies, those other perspectives. We're going to vibrate out other people's energies, programs, thoughts, opinions. And we're going to vibrate out the ones that are really kind and generous and the ones that love us. We're going to vibrate out the energies that are sideways, hella shady, super passive aggressive. We can vibrate those out. We're also going to vibrate the energies that have been there for so long that they even sound like us. The ones that have been there, again, guided by our intuition, but the ones that have been there so long that we think they're us. Let's see how much of that is ready to be released. And again, we're releasing everything we think we know about who we are to make space for who we really are in this deeper level. And we're releasing all these old perspectives to make room for a new one. Maybe one that's more accurate, maybe one that's more easily to have meaningful friendships, to get what I want, to be happy. I'm gonna let the earth, the universe, our guides, one more time, kind of bless that clairvoyance, those gifts. Just see how much is appropriate to bring in. And then one more time, giving us that full permission to own our perspective, to own our crown, and to validate our lived experiences. We're going to put magnets in front of us and behind us again to clear energies. And one more time, we're going to refresh our connection to the earth and imagine that all these beautiful, deep earth energies can like hold and stabilize all these things that we're opening and unlocking. They can celebrate everything that we're unlocking. And then all of that validation that we were bringing in, feel how much the earth loves you, feel how much validation the earth has for your lived experiences. And then we're going to let all of this energy work, everything I shared, we're going to let it evolve our identity, our self-concept, our reality and belief structures. We'll let this evolve our relationships. Let this integrate gently. You can feel there's a lot of folks that had really big openings. Just they don't have to come all at once. Good. And then again, it's like it's all about our perspective. So if there's anything that I shared that made a lot of sense to you, let your guides translate that information. Let it be in your words and like keep my energy out of your crown, out of your space. If there's any things that I said that weren't helpful, even more reason to keep them out of your space. There you go. And then just imagine like this whole work that we were doing, this beautiful container. Imagine that we can offer it out to the universe So if there's other people that want to grow their gifts, that want to have a relationship to their perspective that's really healthy and really validating, that these energies like multiply and they get made available so that it's easier, they don't have to work so hard, stumble in the dark like we did. Perfect. And as we send that out, we're going to individuate and just imagine like we can all recall our energies from one another. So I'm going to recall my authentic energies. So you can recall your authentic energies, and then imagine if there's anyone else's energies in your space, you can send those back to them. And we can do that real quick here and with any other relationships. And then one more time, we're going to clear with magnets. We'll refresh our connection to the earth. We'll recall our authentic energies. And boom. Good job, everybody.